This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from PeopleForward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self.
Hey everyone, it's Rosie. I am super excited to have KL Shah, expert salary negotiator and career strategist, launch a new series on the podcast called The Career Bump. In this series, KL offers your ultimate guide to show up as a leader by stepping into your power, getting in the driver's seat, and making moves that matter in your career. She describes it as she is going to be your career roadie. Lots of great stuff in her series. Take a listen.
Welcome back to the Career Bump podcast. This is episode 3. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shaw. It is so nice to be with you again. So we talked a lot in episode 1 and 2 about sort of laying the groundwork and the foundation for building your career. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about, yes, having a roadmap, but you don't need to have a perfect plan. What you really need is curiosity. So I led my entire career based on curiosity and focusing on what I can control. And I know we talked about this before, but there's only 2 things you can control in life, and that is how you show up and how you treat others. So the idea of having a roadmap that is so clear that you know exactly where you want to go, you have this destination, unless you're a doctor, a lawyer, those are just 2 examples that come to mind. There's obviously more. Unless that is your absolute destination, when you go into the corporate world, there are so many possibilities. Even if you graduated with a marketing degree, that can be applied to many, many different areas of business. So I didn't build my career by following a map. I really built it by saying yes and being so curious. So I have this massive appetite that I want to always learn, and I let that appetite and that hunger drive me. So it may or may not have always been super strategic, and it wasn't always easy, but saying yes to every opportunity that came my way really, really taught me something. And that is, even the ones that didn't work out, that I'm capable of so much more than I realize. And in order for me to continue to grow and fill this hunger that I have to continue to develop myself, I need to say yes to more opportunities. But I also needed to make sure that I was putting myself out there and building my network, which is one of the most critical aspects of navigating your career. 80% of jobs are found via your network. And if it's found via your network, it's also about how you're putting yourself out there and how you're showing up every single day. So I think there's pressure that we're supposed to have it all figured out. We hear it all the time. What is your 5-year plan? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? And honestly, I think sometimes the most fantastic and most honest answer is to answer, I'm just not sure yet, but I'm figuring it out. And I'm excited to be talking to you so you can share with me your career journey, and I can then figure out, that was interesting, or no, I wouldn't have liked that, so that you can figure out where it is that you want to go. So this episode is about building a roadmap, but not a perfect roadmap. And it's about how can we learn to move and explore and grow, even if we don't have the whole route planned. So as I mentioned, curiosity is the fuel. Curiosity, by the way, is not soft. It is super strategic, or it can be very strategic. The most successful people ask the best questions. So let's say that again. The most successful people ask the best questions. So get curious. Obviously, if you're meeting with someone about their career, they want to know a little bit about you. So you want to tell them what lights you up, what you're really good at, how you want to make an impact on the world, what excites you. So sharing your talent reel in building that, 90-second, 2-minute speech that is your elevator pitch or your talent reel, that people can actually really get to know you, because that will spark ideas for them as well on who to introduce you to. But get really curious on, What paths have they taken? Get curious about the mistakes they've made. Maybe what, if they, with the wisdom that they have today, what they would have done differently in their career, and really start digging in and get them to talk. First of all, people love talking about themselves. They love sharing their journey, and that helps you write yours. So I think it's just a super interesting way for you to get curious and expand your network from that perspective. Consider it a little bit like an informational sort of interview, and think about how do you make it really approachable, comfortable, and just get really excited about learning about other people. So you don't need a roadmap to get started. You really just need curiosity, which is the spark that will help you close that gap. Second thing I want to talk about today is no one is coming to map it out for you. So if you think that your manager or your company is going to lay out your beautiful career map and your plan, unfortunately, you're going to be waiting for a really long time. You may get lucky, but in my experience as a former CHRO, it is impossible for us to do that for every single employee. And it's certainly the leader's responsibility to help you with that. But don't wait for them. It's not their job. Essentially, it's yours. I always believe that you're in the driver's seat of every conversation. So if you're not already setting up regular one-on-ones and not leading those meetings and coming prepared with an agenda, and then dedicating time on a quarterly basis to ask for feedback and talk about your growth, you're leaving a really incredible opportunity on the table. Sharing with your leader about who you've met and what you're doing to develop and what's next or what's getting in your way. These conversations have to be led by you. Again, don't wait for them. But frankly, as a leader, when my people would come forward with an organized agenda, what do you need me, like, what roadblocks do you need me to remove for you? Let's talk about your growth. And when they ask for feedback, that shows leadership. So you don't have to be in a leading role. You can be an individual contributor in doing this. But if you show up that way for your leaders, they are willing to help you even more. And that also means introducing you to people. I would always ask as a takeaway, listen, is there anyone you think I should meet? Is there any courses that you think I should take? Is there any events or conferences that you think would be interesting for me to go to? And most of the time, if anyone asked me that, I would always pay for it as well as their leader. So don't be shy to do this. This is a really important part of your growth as a leader, as an individual, and have your boss work for you. So let me give you a personal example of some really big growth moments that came from raising my hand, even when I had no idea what I was doing. So as I think I've said before, saying yes is what drove my career. So I said yes to a role in HR. I didn't even know what HR stood for. If I'm being totally honest, I had not any exposure to human resources because every job I ever got was people tapping me on the shoulder. And I thought, wow, why not? Let's go for it. And I had no idea at that moment that this would change the trajectory of my entire career. I then went on to become a CHRO, and helping people unlock their potential was my purpose. I didn't know that at the time. So my goal was always just to show up as the best version of me and do great work. So when I said earlier, the only thing you can control is how you show up and how you treat others. How you show up is also about what you're delivering. And at that time, working hard was a badge of honor. So I also worked harder than everyone else. I'm not saying that that is the ticket to getting there, because it's not always about working harder. There's also ways of working smarter. But at the time, that was a bit of a badge of honor. So yeah, I delivered with impact. I made sure I just did really great work, and I treated others with kindness. And I raised my hand to learn every day. So every single day I showed up as a leader, even before I was one. Because leadership isn't, well, real leadership isn't just about the title, it's about your behavior. And I had a client say this to me the other day. We were having a session and he said, Before I was a leader, I had this experience that I didn't get selected to do something on a team that he was part of. And he said, I jumped in and did something that was outside of scope that showed how invested I was as an individual contributor on this team. And I just jumped in and did something. And I ended up then getting awarded a special leadership award. And it was just such a beautiful example of really realizing that real leadership is about how you show up as opposed to whether or not it's in your title. Because I think we've all experienced some pretty crappy leaders. So just because you have a leadership in your title or manager in your title doesn't mean that you're really good at it. So let's talk a little bit about how do you show up as a leader with or without the title? Or maybe said this way, what are some of the signs that you're showing up as a leader? Because if you want to become a leader, you have to think beyond your role and you have to think about how am I showing up and how are people now then perceiving me so that I do get that tap on the shoulder, that I do get the opportunities. So think beyond your role would be the first area. And that is really, don't just do your job. Think about how your job connects to the bigger picture. Think about when you are meeting with people in your network, talk about what's keeping them up at night and talk about their strategy. So what are the three main topics that the company is working towards? And then make sure your work is contributing to those things. Because if you're wasting time doing things that are not making an impact, you're spinning your wheels, you're not getting the attention. And frankly, it's not going to matter as much as work that you do that gets connected to the bigger picture. Second one would be speaking up with purpose. So sharing ideas, asking hard questions, challenging decisions when things don't feel right. I did this my entire career. It ruffled some feathers for sure. I did it in an appropriate way, of course, but I challenged status quo constantly, not blaming or, saying that somebody did something wrong, but I asked hard questions so that we could get to the best answer. So when you do this, it shows that you're not afraid to push for better outcomes. Obviously, doing this in a respectful way is extremely, extremely crucial. The feathers that I may have ruffled in my career weren't necessarily about me. It actually probably said more about them because I might have pushed a button or a trigger that got them nervous about themselves or that perhaps they hadn't delivered to the level that they wanted to deliver. But I think speaking up with purpose is a huge, huge one. The third one would be you solve problems. You don't just spot them. So instead of saying, this isn't working, you say, hey, here's an idea that might help. You come with solutions, not just complaints. Another key one is you support others without needing credit. You lift people up, you mentor, you coach, you advocate, you help behind the scenes. You celebrate other wins, other people's wins, and you coach them through their losses. That's what you call quiet power. And goes much further than you realize. When you're talking positively about someone else when they're not in the room, they're talking about you positively when you're not in the room. And this is reciprocated. This is very karmic, I believe, that you're putting all of this really great energy out into the universe and lifting other people up. It will always come back to you in a positive light. 2 more to go. One, the second last is own your impact. And by that, I mean, you take accountability, not just for your wins, but also for your mistakes. You reflect on those mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and you grow in public. This is a bold one. This is definitely a more challenging one. I know people in my life who are so courageous in their leadership that they not only take accountability, they proactively ask their teams for feedback on a regular basis in a group setting. I don't want to tout my husband because, of course, I think he's amazing, but it's my husband that does this. And I tell you, he's one of the very few leaders that I have met in my entire career that are brave enough to do this and create this trust-based environment where his team is not afraid to tell him what's working, what's not working. So it's a start, stop, continue. What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? What should we continue doing? And it is really a beautiful forum for him to learn, for him to say, okay, fair enough. Let's pivot. That was the wrong move. It shows them how they can show up in a community setting, even if they're individual contributors and not leaders yet, how they can then share that with their teams and continue to learn and grow. It is such a huge one when you own it. I would say in my career, I don't know that I was always as brave to do that in a group setting. I could do that one-on-one, and I was very good at bringing situations to my leadership when something was going off the rails, because I never, ever wanted to shove something under the rug, which then becomes, a cancer, and we cannot afford for something to really go off the rails and a big challenge to happen that is not recoverable. So the sooner you find out about it, the sooner you bring it to the table, and the sooner you have solutions, the sooner you own your impact. And that's leadership. And last, you lead yourself well. So think about how you manage your energy, and think about how you communicate. Think about how you show up. You're not waiting for permission to grow. You're building every single day the skills and the mindset and the presence of a leader. So when I talk about managing energy, that is, are you coachable? Are you looking in the mirror? Are you aware of your triggers, of the things that are getting in your way, things that are getting you jacked up, how you're showing up as a leader, as a human, how you're articulating projects, updates, your value, other people's value? Are you doing what you say you're going to do? After a meeting, are you following up? Are you following up with your commitments? This is what you can own. And it is so incredibly crucial that you own this. It is the biggest part of what success looks like from my perspective. And I think when you also show up this way, people trust you and they seek you out. So they're then looking for people to join their teams that they can trust, that own their stuff, that lead themselves well, that take accountability, that lift other people up, and all these things. That is why I believe I was tapped on the shoulder throughout my career to join teams, most jobs that I never ever applied for. So if you've ever hesitated to negotiate or felt unsure about what to ask for, or worried that you might say the wrong thing, the Salary Bump Accelerator is for you. This is my step-by-step system to help you earn thousands more in your next salary conversation. And because you're a listener, you get 15% off with the code POD15. That's POD15. Go to thesalarybump.com and start negotiating with confidence, because your next paycheck should be your best one yet. So let's round out this podcast with talking a little bit about leading with impact and about career advancement. So we talked about what you can own, and now let's talk about climbing the ladder. Climbing the ladder is not just going up. It's also about the ripple effect that you can create. So when you're networking, this is obviously something you can do yourself in looking in the mirror, but ask other people where they think you make the biggest difference. Ask them, what do you see from a problem-solving perspective that I am able to do that perhaps other people aren't? And let's talk about impact. How can I make the biggest impact here at this organization or outside? So beyond asking, ask yourself, where do you think you make the biggest difference? What are the problems that you love solving? And what is the impact that you want to leave behind? So if I ask myself those questions, and I look back at my career and where I am today, I make the biggest difference in touching people, in helping people unlock their potential, and I'm a very heart-centered leader. I didn't always know that I was able to be as heart-centered as I know I am, because I felt I needed to wear a mask at times. But I believe that being a heart-centered leader and helping people find their way is my gift, if you will, or my purpose. And when it comes to solving problems, I love solving problems, period. It doesn't matter what the problem is. The kinds of problems that I love solving are the hard ones that most people run away from because I ask really good questions. And I think seeing and bringing people along the journey to solve it with me is some of the most fun that I've ever had. And the impact, what impact do I want to leave behind? Well, I'm on a mission to do my part to close the gender and racial pay gap and get on stages where this message needs to be heard, because I know that this is a real issue in the world, and to give people the confidence to show up as their best selves and to negotiate and have the confidence to do it is incredibly meaningful. So that's the impact that I want to leave behind. So ask yourself those questions and ask other people in your network also what they think. And yeah, you grow by doing, not by waiting, not by somebody saying, do this or do that. A lot of people come to me because they're stuck. They're just unsure. And that's okay because you took the first step by reaching out. But you grow by doing. And I believe that you either grow or you're dead. So this constant idea of curiosity and growth and learning and adding new things to your toolkit, talking about failures, feedback, and how can you use failure as a way to fuel you forward and what you learn from that, how you can stop this cycle of feeling like I need to be perfect at everything, or I need to have 100% of the qualifications before I apply for a job. That's just not the case. Yes, it takes confidence and it takes courage to say yes to something that is scary, but it can turn into something really, really magical. And I'm sure if you look back on your career and your life, you will have seen that not every move you made was the right one, but that some of those moves turned into something really, really incredible. And I'm here to tell you that I spent my career doing that. I have met thousands of people that do the same, and you can do it too. So let's wrap it up. Your career is not a straight line. It is for sure a series of turns and questions and roadblocks and rest stops and wrong exits and beautiful surprises. So I want to leave you with a couple of reflections. What are you curious about right now? What is one small thing you could say yes to? And where can you create more impact, even without a title change? I had breakfast with someone today who is a very dear friend, and he was asking about what's next for him. He took an assessment, and the assessment said he's in the top 3%. And the person who gave him his results said, you should be doing your own thing. You shouldn't be working in corporate. And he's like, I don't know what to do with that, KL. And I said, well, perhaps you don't have to do anything with that, except ask yourself some questions. Do you have a risk tolerance to go out on your own? It's not for the faint of heart. How can you be more entrepreneurial in your existing role? Could you do a side hustle and dip your toe in and see if that's interesting? What do you believe you're really good at? And start playing and asking yourself some of these questions so you can think about, how do I want to make a bigger impact? How do I want to keep growing? Do I need to take a course? Do I need to learn something new? If it's a space that I'm interested in, what do I need to know about that space before I say yes? There are so many free courses out there. Harvard has a list of free courses that you could put on your resume as well. There are so many ways for you to continue to fill your toolkit and your cup with things that inspire you, things that excite you, that you never know could turn into something really magical. And actually, another quick story. I just got off a call with a doctor, a family physician, who got tired of the Canadian healthcare system. And she decided, I'm going to exit. I can't do it anymore. And she decided to go out on her own and coach about wellness and nutrition, and really critical things that she knows that she still gets to share her special gift, but she's not performing in a white coat anymore. So there are so many ways that you can pivot, and I'm here to share all of these stories with you to send positive energy to you and help you along the way. So thank you so much for listening. Please feel free also to send me a DM. Tell me what you're exploring right now. I'd love to hear what you're saying yes to, what you're up to, what might be blocking you. And until next time, enjoy the ride and stay curious. Ciao.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to PeopleForwardNetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.